forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby Maine. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
And then I got caught up with this other piece of shit, Don King, who's just a wretched, slimy, reptilian mother. Right? This is supposed to be my brother, my black brother. Right? He's just a bad man. He's a real bad man. He abused you, and he would kill his mother for $1. He's ruthless, he's deplorable, he doesn't know how to love anybody. That's just the way he is.
The greatest country in the world, man. This is America, baby.
Definitely. Why would that reduction of penalty from second-degree murder to manslaughter take place on a Saturday morning without the proper authorities being notified? Something was very radically wrong, and it was a miscarriage of justice, there's no question about it.
I got in a fist fight in what I call frustrations of the ghetto expressing themselves. When you're dealing with
King served 4 years and got out of prison in 1971. He later gave his version of the homicide to a British reporter.
How did you kill a man in a fist fight?
Well, we was fighting one another and we was kicking one another, and his head hit the concrete, and it must have been a pretty bad blow, which I've suffered deep contrition for since it happened. But nevertheless, I was instrumental in the fatality of a fellow human being whom happened to be one of my personal friends. Unfortunately for me, they found out that I was Don King, the guy that was running the numbers. Now the sensationalism came into play. Don King, the numbers baron, the numbers czar, the numbers kingpin. So they began to try me for numbers rather than for an accidental death and the fatality of a fellow human being.
Just like today, Cleveland in the 1950s was a city of hustle and hardship, where the factories kept running, but not everybody got a fair shot. The economy was strong, but segregation kept black families boxed into the east side. Locked out of better housing, better jobs, and real power, opportunities would be limited, and survival would mean finding your own way, sometimes in the shadows. Out of this struggle, a man who knew how to move through the streets, building his name in a world where respect and power was earned the hard way. Over the years, 2 men would lose their lives in his path, nearly a decade apart. He would spend time behind bars, but that wouldn't be the end of his story. And just 4 years after his release from prison, he would come back stronger than anyone could ever imagine, stepping into uncharted territory for a black man, breaking barriers that never been touched. From Muhammad Ali to Mike Tyson, he controlled the biggest fights, the biggest names, and the biggest paydays, going on to dominate a $400 million industry.
I
love to see the look of fear in the eyes of the white man. It's yours, baby. Count it. Down payment.
Down payment.
Feels good, huh? Having some cash in the hand.
How much is here?
$50,000.
$50,000, and it's a down payment, which means I get to keep it whether the fight goes or not.
Oh, it's all yours, baby.
That's blank.
Oh, don't worry about that. We fill it in later. Your signature is like a magic wand. I'm gonna wave it all over the world, baby. Make all things possible.
And you gonna wash your hands?
I wash my hands before I touch my dick.
Let me, well, that's certainly true. It seems to be more and more fights and more televised fights, and I would guess that the actual attendance is higher than it used to be.
Tremendous. It boggles the mind.
Let me ask you about your background. You actually did time, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
I made the time serve me. I had 4 years in incarceration in Marion Correctional Institution in Ohio. I found myself with this time. It was excruciating, painful, you know.
I imagine it was. Can I ask you why you were there?
Manslaughter. I had a fist fight in the ghetto, you know, where others have many, many fights in the ghetto and nothing happens. I had a fight and the guy died. So I've suffered deep contrition for this, and I feel that the only way you can expiate is by, for your sins is by doing something for others. However, I was in the numbers business. Now the state is heralding the numbers business.
Yeah.
You know, everybody look, there's a lottery ball jumping up. The number is 978.
Yeah.
When I did that.
What was the number today, Don?
I
Did
don't
you get
know.
it?
You know. Did you?
Wasn't 978 though, was it?
No.
But in your case, you actually did rehabilitate yourself in prison, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I educated myself in prison. I read avidly all the philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Thoreau, Cahill, Braun, Marcus Aurelius, and I went to school by correspondence.
Yeah.
And it was a painful situation, but I found a jewel in adversity.
Let me ask you this. How did you you came out of prison a convicted felon?
Yes.
Now, how can you, is it possible for a man convicted of a felony to get a license to promote boxing exhibitions?
Yes, it is, only in America. You know, I think America is just a great country, and I'm just delighted to be an American. I love my country, David. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
And I think I've done quite well. I'm a true attestation to the American dream.
Now, how did you go from being in prison for 4 years to putting together the top fighting promotions in America?
Well, by faith in God, hard work, perseverance, determination, commitment, and performance.
Yeah.
And knowing Muhammad Ali.
The blast tore through the quiet of Cleveland's east side, shaking the streets as Don King's front porch exploded into pieces. It was May 1957, and this wasn't some random act of violence. It was a message. By that time, Don King had made a name for himself in the city's numbers racket, or what we call the lotto today, allegedly pulling in up to $15,000 or $160,000 today, daily. And that kind of money didn't go unnoticed. And the Cleveland Underworld wanted their cut. And Alex Shonda Burns, one of the city's most feared mobsters, had demanded that Don King pay a street tax for protection. At first, King would play along, but when he would refuse to keep paying, the pressure would turn violent, and the bomb was said to be just a warning. But despite the threats, Don King would take the stand against Shonda Burns and the mafia. But when push came to shove, he would fall back and the charges would disappear. But that was only part of his run-ins with the law. Not long after that, the IRS would raid his home, accusing him of dodging over $32,000 in policy tax. And making that much money at only about 25 years old, Don King would already have a name in Cleveland's underground. And y'all know, with playing with that type of money, you better be ready for some type of violence. And Don King was locked in 1954, and about 3 years before he would have his porch blown up by the mafia, Don King would catch a man by the name of Hillary Brown trying to rob one of his gambling houses, and he would shoot him in the back as he would try to run. The killing would be ruled justifiable, and Don King would walk free. But 12 years later, in 1966, things would play out a little differently. This time, the victim would be a guy by the name of Sam Garrett, an employee who allegedly owed Don King $600 from a bad bet. The two would begin to argue before, according to witnesses, Don King would snap, stomping and kicking Sam Garrett in the head over and over as witnesses watched. Garrett would eventually die from his injuries, and Don King would be hit with second-degree murder charges. But with the right legal team or the right connections, the charges would get knocked down to manslaughter. In a situation that could have cost him decades of his life, Don King would end up serving only 4 years in prison, and he would walk out in 1971, and that was only the beginning of his story.
It also started Don King on an 82-minute cathartic speech in which we learned everything about the man with the exception of what he had for breakfast on January 3rd, 1956.
Everybody has attacked me, and many of the press here can be a living testimony to it. They have castigated me. They have burned me on the oils. This is the second or third time he's threatened my life. I mean, it's a thing here that it's a law where you threaten a person's life. It's against the law, especially when you keep making these vicious threats. Here's a man that took it upon himself to threaten my life in front of all the illustrious press here. So your life becomes worthless.
He talked about how he signed to Don King, and, you know, he figured, well, I ain't gonna go the same way as Mike. I got my business straight, and sure enough, Zab Judah gets ripped off by Don King as well.
You know, I was coming out of my contract with Shelly Finkel in Duvas, you know, and Don King caught me with the you know, with the white man shit. Oh, brother, come on, brother, them motherfucking Jew motherfuckers, they got you. Come on, brother, don't be over there. You know, they slick, brother, they slick. You know, he got me with that shit like that.
That's how he got Tyson also.
Yeah, I mean, but he's good.
He used the black angle on him.
No, he used that fucking mouthpiece. Don King's the coldest pimp ever. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna, boy, listen, I mean, the reason why I say he the coldest pimp, because he used us. We was his horse. We was the one that went got money for him. You know, I use it in the terminology of pimping. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Don had us. We went out there. We got money for him unknowingly. This is how he conducted the business. And then when you you know what I'm saying, when you ain't good for him no more, he get rid of you.
Well, what was your worst experience with him? What was that one thing where you're like, man, I can't believe it?
Making your money and getting your check and the shit don't say what you negotiated.
Really?
That's when me goes back to Brownsville. Then the Brownsville come out me, you know what I'm saying?
Well, how much did he short you?
$1.5 million.
Man, listen, man, I ain't here to talk about on Don King. He's a fucking goat. He's a gangster.
Oh, so you've done business with Don King?
Hell no.
Just about 4 years after his release from prison in 1971, Don King would go from a recently released ex-con to pulling off one of the greatest power moves in sports history, bringing the world thriller in Manila, the October 1st, 1975 showdown between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. It was bigger than a boxing match. It was more like war, and Don King made sure that the entire world was watching. Him being the hustler he was, he would even secure funding from Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos and turn the event into a global spectacle. Muhammad Ali would go on to prove that he was the greatest, and Don King would prove that he ran the business. But even as he would secure the sport's top fighters and go on to dominate the world of boxing promotions, whispers from his past never faded. And in 1992, during a Senate investigation, Don King would invoke his Fifth Amendment rights when asked about his connections to mob boss John Gotti, who, according to Notorious Rat Sammy the Bull, had a bag on Don King's head. From the streets of Cleveland to dodging mobsters and police to controlling the biggest fights and fighters from Muhammad Ali to Mike Tyson, Don King would play the game at the highest level, going on to dominate a $400 million industry, which before him was all white, breaking into a world that was never meant for him to win. And with BET listing his net worth at right around $290 million, I have to ask y'all, has anyone in the history of life played a hand better than Don King? Now, y'all make sure y'all hit the red bell and subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. Y'all definitely get in the comment box below. Y'all let me know what cities we need to go to, what stories we need to tell, what we missed, what we got wrong, all of that. Y'all make sure y'all tapping with me directly on Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And until the next play, y'all know how we rocking. Shades Popalot. Salute the almighty mob.